Blog Talk Radio.
Well, welcome. This is Mike Krause, the Sales Sense Reality Talk-In Show. And today I have Rhett VanScoter from VanScoter Insurance Agency here located in Greece, New York. And Rhett is licensed insurance agent specializing in working with small business owners. Rhett founded the agency in 2005 and represents some of the top nation's insurance companies, including Erie Insurance, Travelers, Farmers, and Progressive. And prior to opening his agency in 2005, Rhett worked as a senior accountant for Davy Kaplan Chapman Braverman accounting firm, obtaining his CPA. So he has the best of both worlds. He's an accountant and he provides insurance to people right here in Rochester, New York. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Rhett. Rhett, how are you this morning?
Great. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about you. As we know, insurance is for everybody, so you have a great business model, and you've really done a lot of unique things when going out there and looking for new clients. As you know, insurance is no different than any other sales position. You're always prospecting and building relationships. And can you tell us a little bit more about what kind of makes you unique with regards to insurance?
I guess for me, kind of what makes me unique is like you talked about in the intro, is kind of my accounting background. I like to specialize in working with, business owners. And so I kind of bring a different aspect to the table. When I sit down with somebody, I'm not just there to kind of, I guess, be single-minded and sell them insurance. I kind of sit down and, I kind of have a broader view and say, all right, what are the risks that this, client is exposed to? And so, not only do I recommend insurance policies, but I also recommend for some clients that might just be, working as a DBA, that they can get another level of protection by, incorporating their business, by doing a subchapter S corporation or doing a limited liability company. And I try to look at what's going to protect basically them and their personal assets if, the major catastrophe happens, if that big $1 million lawsuit, comes through their door, how is that going to affect them personally? When you work so hard to kind of build up your net worth and your living and your income, you don't want that wiped away with one lawsuit. So that's kind of what I bring to the table that's unique, is just a broader exposure than a single-minded view just selling insurance.
Absolutely, and numbers are everything, and to have that analytical mind instead of just in the insurance mind is the best of both worlds in my mind. And you bring up some good points there. There are a lot of times a small business owner doesn't know what they should be, a DBA or a C Corp or an S Corp, and for you to bring that to the table, that's valuable. When we talk about territory and main focus is selling on this show, is how big is your territory? Do you have clients all over the U.S., or do you just provide locally here in Rochester?
Well, my license is for New York State, so I can pretty much sell anywhere in New York State. My primary focus is Monroe County and the surrounding counties in New York, but I do have some clients in Buffalo and Syracuse, and I even have a couple all the way down in New York City. So I do span the state, but kind of the bread and butter of my business is pretty local, and I'd say even within 10 to 15 miles of my agency is where the bulk of my business is.
No, absolutely. Now, with regards to when you're prospecting and looking for those new clients, besides the individual, what type of businesses do you like to work with, or your primary focus?
My primary focus is businesses that have 5 or fewer employees. So really the closely held, family-owned businesses. that are usually kind of the Main Street type businesses that you could walk in kind of any village and see, your gift shop, your florist, your chiropractor's office, your dentist office, all those types of businesses we like to work with. And then also any contractors that you could have come to your house that does a specific trade, so an electrician, a plumber, someone who does siding or driveway sealing. Those are all the types of businesses that we like to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And out of all the things, why did you pick insurance to go into? What was the flavor that you liked about it?
And insurance, I guess I kind of fell into insurance. I mean, when I was working in accounting, I kind of knew at some point I was going to make the leap and work for myself. I just didn't realize it was going to be as soon as it was. Just worked out timing was good kind of in my life at the time. So it worked out, but kind of my insurance interest got sparked by my sister, who works for a State Farm agency, and she worked for a really sharp agent at the time, and she said, if you're looking into a business, I think this would be a good, idea for you. She's like, it's a professional atmosphere, you're an advisor for people, and really what I liked about public accounting is working with clients, and so that's why I want to make sure that when I made the move to open my own business, I wanted to work in the community. I like to be part of the local community and make a difference. And so that's really a perfect fit for me because I get to deal with, individuals and businesses on a daily basis that I get to help out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I like about mine as well, is to help those businesses grow and be there as the advisor. It's a great feeling. And I think in sales, you have to have that passion to go out and help people. I mean, that's really the core function of a salesperson, is to help others, be successful in whatever you're selling. So, absolutely. Lead generation is always important to a sales professional. And, how do you generate leads, and kind of walk us through what you do out there to maybe get that new or first-time business owner to give you a call?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, leads that's a lifeblood of any sales position. So if you don't have any prospects, out there, you're going to wither away and die pretty quick. So that's a main focus that I like to, on my agency, is always having kind of my pipeline filled with, who am I going to reach out to next? What class am I going to target? And I do a lot of it through referrals, because everyone knows you get a referral, and it's a lot easier than making a cold call. And so I do that through reaching out to my current clients. Especially for business owners, for my current clients, I'll sit down with them maybe annually or every other year to kind of go over their insurance policies with them to see what's changed, if there's any coverages that we need to add or delete, talk to them about how business is going, if they've added any additional equipment. And pretty much at the end of that meeting, I usually ask, are there any other business owners that that I could reach out to? I'm like, usually I take their temperature and say, geez, are you happy with this, that we sat down with each other, to do this? And, they always say yes. They always say, yeah, this is great. It's valuable. And I say, great, would you be willing to let me call on one of your friends or family members who owns a business that I could do the same thing for them? And almost always they say yes, and you'll walk out with one or two leads there. So I do that in person. I also reach out through a monthly email newsletter, a blast that I send out where basically I give people an incentive, to send me referrals. So every month I do a raffle, usually about a $50 value. It'll be, one of my favorite ones is I do a $25 gift card to a restaurant and 2 movie passes. So I'm giving them a free night out, or pretty close to a free night out, and I say, whoever calls my office and says, I was referred by Mike Krause or, Jane Doe, I'm going to throw your name in our raffle bowl. And so every month when I send that out and I announce the winner, without fail, the following week, my phone's ringing and people are saying, geez, so-and-so referred me to your agency, said I should give you a call for my auto insurance, or, I'm starting a business for my business insurance. So that's one of the ways I do it. I also go through a lot of social media. That's kind of the hot thing right now, and so I find that to be a good way to reach out to connections that I have that are pretty loose. I have, I don't know, 400 something connections on Facebook, and I'm not sure how many on LinkedIn, but so a lot of them are pretty tight-knit, but there's some that are pretty loose. I might have just met the people once. Whenever I go to an event or I meet somebody, I reach out to them, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and just to make that connection. So I stay in front of them after the fact, because I try to, at least 3 to 5 times a week, post some sort of status update on there on what I'm doing, business-wise, and also I try to, sprinkle in a little bit personal. And then other things I do, I guess, to generate leads is, I do direct mail, and I also use a telemarketer, which I find very useful for getting my foot in the door for business accounts. They're a little bit more cold leads, but I find that I've gotten some pretty good clients out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cold calling is still a great way to generate leads. There's no question about it. Every sale that I've ever done pretty much has been a cold call, or it starts cold. Every relationship you have started somewhere and has to start somewhere. And I'm connected to you on Facebook, and you do a great job of just giving information, because so many times, and I always use this attorney analogy, because when I was providing service to attorneys, Mike, I could do someone's will, and then they get in a car accident, and they call Salino and Barnes. And I could handle that personal injury case, but they don't realize it. And I guess the point is, if someone didn't know that you did handle small businesses, and I see your tweets and your Facebook updates, just met with a florist, I would probably think, well, Rhett just sells insurance. He wouldn't care about a florist. And I think taking that to the next level of saying, I just met with a florist, or I just met with an auto mechanic, or just kind of giving people an idea that you do an array of products and services versus just insurance, And I think you do a great job in that, is just putting things out there, information, and letting others know that you could handle that. And I remember when I put out a tweet, like I just said, I met with a manufacturing company, an accountant, and an architect in one day. And they're like, wow, I didn't realize you did that many things. And I think that's one thing that a lot of salespeople miss, is they don't tell their current people that they're dealing with the amount of it they can do for them. I don't know if I'm being clear enough there, but you do a great job in just telling them the breadth of your services.
Right. I find that, it's worked for me, because I've had, just this year, I had a friend from high school who, we were a loose acquaintance. I hadn't talked to him since high school. And, I always put my kind of blast out there of, I met with this business and this, different businesses. And he ended up buying a dental practice. And he calls me up and says, hey, I see you do insurance. I see you handle business insurance. Would you be able to insure my dental practice? And I say, well, of course I can, And so he was happy to kind of have that connection, to kind of find out, I guess, through social media that I was able to help him out. Yeah,
and that's just a great story there, because if you didn't put those posts out there, he wouldn't have known. He wouldn't have known what you could have helped him with. And he sees you out there with the small business owner. He's going into a new risk, and you're an valuable advisor when that client's ready. It's so important in the sales process to, sometimes it takes up to a year to convert someone from a lead to a client. And, well, look at that. You were in high school, basically. It takes a long time for you to generate that relationship. You're always a positive guy, Rhett, and attitude is everything in my mind. What do you do, or what do you listen to, or how do you keep yourself mentally engaged in the ups and downs of, owning your own business and in sales?
Sure. It's any sales position is difficult, because you hear more no's than yeses, when you're selling. So you kind of got to put those no's aside and really concentrate on the yeses. And, luckily for me, kind of the insurance business is a high volume business. So, I can hear a yes just about every day, at work. I also hear quite a few no's, as well. But right now, I've been tracking my numbers, and I'm about 50-50 on what I hit on. So that's a pretty good closing percentage. But I guess for me, I go in streaks. I'm either kind of listening to everything. I'm popping in, Brian Tracy CDs, and I have some specific insurance sales CDs, that I listen to. And then usually at night I'll go home and I'll read books. Right now I'm reading one of John Wooden's books, which is just great kind of motivational type stuff to keep you going throughout the day. But probably one of the most important things that I did in my career for sales and being a business owner is, I'm a one-man band. Like I'm running the show. I'm doing everything. I'm the IT professional to the accountant to the sales, to the webmaster. So it's like I pretty much wear all the hats. And it can be frustrating, and you have a lot of questions, and sometimes you feel like you have no one to turn to. So early in my career, I decided to reach out to a mentor. And so I asked another insurance agent that I admired who'd been in the business for years, if I could sit down with him once a month and basically pick his brain, and he could help give me advice and kind of steer me in the right direction. And it was, he helped answer a lot of questions for me, but he also kept me motivated as well. If I'm going through struggles, I'm saying, geez, I just feel like I'm getting a whole lot of no's this month, and this is the type of target that I'm going for. We would kind of go over my pitch together, and he'd say, geez, why don't you try saying this, or use a different example, or maybe give a recommendation. So working with a mentor is one of the most important things that I'd recommend for any sales professional or business owner, because it really helps keep you on track and I guess upbeat.
Absolutely. And you mentioned a couple of things. The salesperson has always got to be engaged in learning, and you're doing that. The Brian Tracy CDs, the information around you, because if you're not growing, you're kind of dying, and mentorship is so critical. I mean, I've had some great mentors in my life, and they've really made the difference. And honestly, it's a win-win. That person's, what do I want to say? That person feels very good about helping you, too. It's a win-win situation. And I think a lot of times salespeople remain on that island. And I guess what Rhett is saying and myself is don't remain on that island. Come out and ask for help. There's a lot of great people out there that can help you, and just kind of always keep engaged, because you have to have that positive attitude. Just like Rhett said, there's a lot of no's and there's a lot of yeses too. And you also mentioned tracking your numbers. I think that is so great that you do that, because honestly, I know a lot of salespeople don't track that. If you're not tracking your close percentage, then you don't know if you're getting better or worse. So that's really good that you're tracking that number. Is that something that you always wanted to do, or because you have that analytical mind, or why would you care about tracking your numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's partly my analytical mind. When I first got started, I was just, I was more concerned with just putting business on the books, and I wasn't really focusing. I didn't have a lot of time to kind of do it. Now I set aside, pretty much a half hour. I try to set aside a half hour to an hour every week to kind of go through my numbers and look at the week and see what I'm doing. And it's helped, because I've really been able to sit down and do some goal setting for not only the current year but future years. And I sit down, and insurance is a numbers game, just like anything else. I say, in order for me to write, 300 policies, if I'm closing at 50%, I got to quote 600. So if I have to quote 600 policies, how many people do I have to talk to? And then you kind of boil it down and say, all right, well, each policy, each person might have an average of 1.5 policies with my agency. So then I boil it down to, all right, how many people do I have to reach out to? So I really kind of drive down on those numbers, and I set my goal for the year, and I break it down monthly, and so I know if I'm on track or not. And right now I'm actually ahead of schedule. I'd put my close ratio at 40% when I did my budgeting, which is still above the industry average, which is more like a third or 20%. But I work on more of a relationship type business, so I have a little bit higher close ratio. And right now I'm at 50%, but I've still done the same amount of quotes and met more prospects than I had budgeted for. So I'm ahead of schedule in the total amount of applications that I've written and total premium. So that's kind of important for insurance agents. You want to make sure that you're not only writing a lot of premium, but that you're also writing a lot of applications, because I could have one big client where I get, a $10,000 account for one application, and maybe that's, a third of my goal for the month. It kind of skews the numbers, so you have to make sure, well, I still want to make sure I get, 40 or 50 applications in for the month, to keep my applications count high, because if that one $10,000 account walks out the door, it's tougher to make it up. So you still want to make sure that I'm tracking my goal based on, premium volume and total applications.
The excellent point there, too, is that, sometimes people in sales, they get a little bit ahead of themselves. They kind of rest on their laurels, if you would, and then they fall off the beaten path. You get a big account, and then you kind of rest, and that's exactly what not to do. When you get the best thing to do after you get an account is make another sales call, because your attitude and your tone is totally different. And that's very interesting that you actually do the exact same thing that I help people do, is don't rest, because that's usually the beginning of your downfall. So I know you have to run. But one last thing. You do a great newsletter, and just share with the listeners, how effective that newsletter is, because that's one thing I always try to help clients with, too, is you have to be a resource. And kind of just briefly close this out there with your newsletter, and, then I'll let you go.
Sure. I guess I'd say, anyone who wants to check out, I have my blog as well on my website. It's, www.vanscooterinsurance.com, and it's scooter is spelled with one O. But pretty much I try to, every other week, do a blog post, and once a month, an email newsletter. And I try to provide useful information for my clients. So I try to alternate between kind of a business insurance tip and a personal insurance tip, and it can be anything from, should I submit this claim on my homeowner's policy? And I'll go through, talking about, well, consider your deductible, consider the effect on your premium, think about how long you've been with the company for. You want to worry about eligibility. You don't want to be canceled, because that will throw you into a high-risk pool. And then maybe for like business, tips, I'll talk about, do you have enough loss of business income if your building caught on fire and you weren't able to work at your location? How fast could you get up and running again? So pretty much every month I try to, be a resource, and it's really, I really don't do too much like selling, I guess, in it. Other than the sales is my knowledge, and so people, I'm in front of people one more time, and I'm bringing them, I guess some good information that maybe they'll share with a friend who they think they might be able to use it. But it's more for, just to show that, hey, I'm a professional, I'm looking out for your best interest, and you can take my advice, read it, or you can, ignore it. It's pretty much their choice. But I have a pretty good open rate on my newsletter. Some of my newsletters I can get an open rate of 65 to 70%, and some I've had a high rate as 90%. So that just shows that, I guess I'm bringing some valuable information for people, which, it's what I'm there for.
Yeah, absolutely, being a resource to your clients. Well, I encourage everyone to, if you need insurance or want to take a look at it, Rhett's a great person here in Rochester, New York, that can help you out. You can be reached at 585-663-2004, and you can check him out on with the VanScoterInsurance.com.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's just a great person, and is a trusted insurance advisor, and he has that CPA background, and he's in sales just like the rest of us, so referrals are always appreciated. And I know you got to go, Rhett, and I really appreciate your time, And I appreciate everyone listening, and good luck on your next sales call. Thanks again.
Great. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.